And we are live.
Right, thank you, Carly. I call this hearing of the Archaeological Review Committee of March 3rd, 2022 to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Eck,
Present.
Member Pierce,
Here.
Member Wands,
Sorry about
Member Zinn.
that. Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you. First item is approval of agenda. Carly, is there anything to change?
She's not here.
I think we lost Harley.
No, nope, there she is.
She is.
Audio now.
Okay, so we're on to approval of agenda. Just inquired of you, Carly, whether there was anything that needed to be changed.
Thank you, Chair Eck. Yes, we do have one change. I believe we have an error on over to it.
Two.
Item number 2 under new business. It should be instead of 1,506 feet, it should be 750 feet on that caption.
That 750?
Correct.
I couldn't hear.
Yes, 750.
All right, thank you. With that, we have a motion.
I move for approval, Mr. Chairman, for approval of the agenda with the change to item number 2 to read 750 linear feet.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Aye.
Member Wands,
Aye.
Member Zinn.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Next on the agenda is approval of minutes of 3 February 2022. Carly, is there anything you know that needs to change here?
No, sir.
All right. Committee members. Number 1.
No comment.
All right. Member Pierce.
Yes. This will be another kind of global find and replace, but the instance I see right now is on page 5. In our last meeting, the acronym NMCRIS was incorrect. Unfortunately, when they did the find and replace, it's incorrect again. There's an extra I in there. NMCRIS is NMCRIS. And here on the text, it reads NIMCRIS. That's incorrect.
Thank you.
Okay. That's another one of the same thing. Oh, on page 8, the second paragraph or second line under committee discussion, there's a sentence that begins Caliche is, and then it just stops. It's an incomplete sentence. I don't know what else was said there, but definitely it just trailed off. And I think the rest are just, yeah, the NMCRIS acronym again. So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Derek. Members in.
Since I wasn't attending, I have no comment.
All right. Thank you. And my only offering is on page 3. The very first entry. Wherein member 1's attempted to correct an acronym. It's still incorrect. It's OAS, as in Oscar, Alpha, Sierra.
Thank you.
All right, we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the February 3rd meeting with the stipulated corrections.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Aye.
Member Wands,
Aye.
Member Zinn.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
You. Item D on the agenda, matters from the floor. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to raise a matter from the floor? Please signify by raising your digital hand or otherwise gaining the attention of Carly so she can enable you to speak.
I see no hands.
All right, hearing no matters raised from the floor, we will move on to item E, old business. I am unaware of any. Is that the case, Carly?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
No.
We'll move to item F, new business. Beginning with case number 2022-4921. Paleo West, agent for PNM, requests approval of a monitoring plan for 21,000 feet of conduit installation along Cayecita Loop in the River and Trails Archaeological Review District. We have a staff report. Thank you, Carly. Anything to add to that?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Whoever is representing Paleo West, I see Robin Cordero appearing. He'll need
Yes.
to be sworn in.
Okay. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Robin Cordero, and I am at 200 Oak Street, Northeast, and that's suite number 5, Albuquerque, 87102 or 6.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Robin, welcome. Is there anything you wish to add to your presentation?
No, I think we covered as much as we think we needed to in the proposal. So open to any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. We will move on to committee members then. Member Zinn?
I don't have any specifics except that there was 2 submittals that were gigantic topo, or pretty useless documents. I'm trying to find it right now, but I just suggest when you put together your graphics and your stuff, you actually take a look at them and see if the information that you really want to transmit is actually on that page, because it was page 40 of 63. Yeah, I just think it's totally useless. I mean, maybe somebody can make something out of that. That's my only comment. I just think you ought to be careful with your own graphics. If you blow up a topo a million times and it has no use whatsoever. No north arrow, no scale, no nothing.
All right, thank you, Member Zinn. Member Pierce?
Yeah, just a couple of general comments. One, since this is exclusively boring and we don't have a lot of opportunity to actually monitor, it would be helpful to have a little bit better picture of where these pull pits and splice pits are on the general alignment. And then the other thing I would recommend is that there's a lot of open ground there. So I'd like to see a little pedestrian survey at least of the boring path, just because it's the only substitute for actual monitoring that we have. So I would walk the lines before the boring begins. So that at least if you see a big surface scatter, you know, hey, maybe we need to reconsider this leg. Other than that, though, I don't have any specific comments.
If I may respond.
Go ahead.
The reason we don't have any splice locations is because PNM decided that they're going to determine where those locations are on the ground. We won't know those until the construction starts because of the nature of this project. And
Fair enough.
And
Make sure
we
that
do-
they are plotted on the final monitoring report when it's all done.
Indeed, they will be plotted, and those locations will have that's where we'll be doing the profiles, the soil profiles.
Fair enough. Yeah, you can't work with what you don't have. I understand.
And then we do intend to walk the open spaces
Great.
while we are out there. So that we do intend to do a little pedestrian survey.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's some consolation for the not being able to see what's being impacted underground.
Sure.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Derek. Member Wands.
Member Pierce pretty much addressed most of all my questions. So I would just note on page 30 of your report after assessors, and sorry, I'm doing this all digitally, so I can't really, I get lost a little bit. But page 30 of your report, you have assessors and then it says houses. I think it's supposed to be assessors' offices. It's not a big deal. That's it.
Okay. I will
All
make
right,
that
I will
change on the final.
that I can't find.
I can't find it scrolling through digitally. I wrote it down and no, I can't find where it is.
So if Robin were to search for a keyword, he would find the instance needing attention.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not a big deal. It's just something I noticed while I was reading it.
All right. And that is all.
I
That's it.
see it on. I do see it on page 30. So
Very good. Quick eyes are better than old ones. Thank you, Member Pierce, for hitting all those things. Page 9, fourth line. It's your paragraph on project specifications. Conduit and cable will be installed via boring. It right now reads boing.
I caught that one too.
Okay. Page 29.
It's a new method we're trying out.
Page 29, this is more a question for further info, if you've got it, than anything else. Last paragraph on the page, fifth line. Segments of the trail were used as recently as the 1970s for sewer installation. Golly, I think city ordinance failed wildly if we slammed the sewer down the Santa Fe Trail. Do you know any more about that?
I will look at that. Came off of when we were doing our record search. That was, I believe, the most recent recording of the trail was for a sewer line project.
All right. Bummer. Okay, lastly, page 36. It's your caption for figure 5.2. Park is singular. It's rendered here as a plural. That is all. We can have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for approval of case 4921 with the corrections as requested by more members.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Aye.
Member Wands,
Aye.
Member Zinn.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Robin.
Thanks.
Case number 2022-4683. Office of Archaeological Studies, agent for the City of Santa Fe Water Division requests approval of a monitoring plan for replacement of approximately 750 feet of waterline replacement on Williams Street, Campana Place, and Cayecita Place in the Suburban Archaeological Review District. Thank you for the staff report. Carly, is there anything you want to change?
No, Chair.
There's one thing I want to change. First word. Monitoring suffers from an unfortunately added extra T.
The Torian.
So whoever is presenting will need to be sworn in.
Stephen Gilbert is coming over to panelist now.
And is Mr. Gilbert a city employee, Carly?
Excuse me, yes.
Okay, so then he does not need to be sworn in, correct?
I don't believe so. That's a good
I don't think so
question.
either.
Frank, are you on? There you are.
Is he the sole presenter we have here?
Believe so.
He should probably be sworn.
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Stephen Gilbert, and my address is 12220 Kinley Place, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87112.
Thank you.
You have the floor, Stephen. What do we need to know?
I don't think much beyond what was in the monitoring plan. I first would like to extend my thanks to OAS, particularly Karen Winning, for her help putting this together. And then secondly, I just noticed some errors after submission that I'd like to go through real fast.
Go ahead.
The first is page 1, the first paragraph, about 5 lines down to the, it says left, but it means right. There's a missing space between the word down and campana. The next one is on page 18. About 3 lines down, there's a missing space between the word environment and that.
You are referring to your own pagination for everybody else's benefit.
Oh yeah, report
Doesn't
page.
match the packet presentation.
Report page 18, not packet page 18. And whenever you're ready, I'll proceed to the next.
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe I'm ready as long as our stenographer has captured that.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, also on page 18, about 5 lines down, there's a missing space between the and project. And also on page 17, about 7 lines down, there's a missing space between the words the and water. And I'm not sure what happened. I feel like it's either my error or something when I converted the Word document to a PDF.
Can you specify that last location one more time, please?
The last one is page 18, about 7 lines down. It says area of the water main project. The water needs a space.
Zoom is garbling what you're saying, so I swore you said page 17.
Page 18,
Seven
about
lines
7
down.
lines down. Yeah, 18, 1-8.
Thank you, sir.
Sure, I've got one more. Page 22, under monitoring expectations, under historic resources. About the second line, there's also a missing space there all the way to the left of the line, between the words be and focused. And that is all I have.
All right. Thank you very much. Stenographer,
Thank
do you
you.
have any clarifying questions to ask about any of that? Hearing none. Members of the committee, Member Pierce.
For a moment, I thought my PDF thing was failing me because it didn't show any highlighted text. But I just verified that's because I have nothing, no comments. Didn't catch the typos either, so. Nothing for me.
Okay. Member Wands.
No, I had no comments. Your references cited start on the same page that your summary ends, but I don't know if that's just a result of how it was saved. Other than that, that's it.
I'd be happy to move it to its own starting.
I just meant, I don't know if it's a formatting thing or.
Page break thing.
All right, is that all?
Yep.
All right, members in.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
I will say the same. No need for any changes on my part. Thank you, Stephen. We can entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve case 4683 monitoring plan along William Street in Component Place as is, no corrections.
I will second that with the corrections made by the applicant himself.
Oh, of course, thank you.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Member Pierce,
Aye.
Member Wands,
Aye.
Member Zinn.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Next case, 2022-4924. Ron Winters, agent for Christian Anderson, requests approval and an archaeological clearance permit for an archaeological survey and testing report for the proposed project at 201 Old Santa Fe Trail in the downtown Archaeological Review District. We have a staff report. Carly, anything you feel you need to change?
No, Chair.
I will offer that there is one thing that needs to change. And that is on the 5th line. Reference to the discovery of a portion of a foundation for Miguel Chavez building cannot be true. That building is over 120 feet away from this project area.
Okay.
I said is, well, its spirit is. It used to be 120 feet away from the project area. All right.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Winters ready to present.
And moving him over to panelist. There we go.
Okay, Mr. Winters, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ron Winters, 109 Cayecita, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron, you have the floor. What more do we need to know?
There's a few things I wanted to talk to you about. One, I didn't feel it necessary with the thorough historical research that Stanley Hordes did for the project directly east of me, the Sherry Sex project, because it was transferred over. One thing I have to apologize for is that there were a few of the diagrams that they included that came from arms rather fuzzy. They're a little hard to read some of the text. And I reached out to Sherry to see about getting, the originals, and I never heard back. The other issue I ran into was that there was no site form submitted to ARMS along with the report. And so I had a question. I think the site is significant in terms of its eligibility. I said unknown, and that has to do with the fact that I didn't get a clear guidance from the original recording of the site, but also the disturbed nature of the deposit, which Glenda writes, was extensive, and I found the same. Although I did record some, footer foundation in my testing. Lastly, I would say that there was a lot of restrictions in terms of where I could test because of the built environment, the sidewalks present on the south or the north side of the Loretto Chapel, the electrical lines. There were a lot of utilities, buried utilities through there with lighting, and there was sculpture. And then, as important probably, was the fact that the vendors that make a livelihood out of that northwest corner of the project area. So what I tested was the areas that were accessible to me. Let's see, what else did I have to say? When Glenda wrote up the report, she felt that no further work was necessary. They were certainly east of me, but they also came into my project area. Courtney was, I believe, an assistant crew chief on that project. And so she's very familiar with the, what they found. I did not find any
Well, almost 20 years ago.
Well, okay. I won't hold you to it then, Courtney.
I would offer that it's only 20 years ago.
I'm gonna say this archaeology, that's nothing.
That's, yeah,
Blink of the eye.
exactly. So I'm sure you have other questions and I'd be happy to answer them, but those were a little qualifications I wanted to make before we started.
All right. So with that, I've lost track of who went first. So let me just pick on Dale. Members in.
I don't know, Ron, if you heard the chair's question up front about the reference to the Miguel Chavez building, but that's not anywhere near your site.
No, that may be my mistake. Yeah.
Okay.
And pulling information from before, but yeah, because that's, although they were dealing with the remains of the demolition of the auditorium, and they did come into the eastern extent of my project.
Right.
Yeah, mine was a Loretto Chapel, Loretto Academy is what I was mostly dealing
All right,
with.
so the agenda item is description is a little wrong. Now, the other question, seems to me that there was some boiler room that you found. Was that on this site or is that a different?
No, that's not within the project area. It's on the east side of the project area.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I just knew that there was some boiler room out there somewhere. I just didn't know where it was. So I have no other further comments, Your Chair.
All right. Thank you. Member Pierce.
Yeah, Ron, I have several things.
Okay.
Some editorial comments and then one that's substantive, but
Okay.
let me go through them here. First, I'm on the last page of the NIAF form, which I believe is like the fourth page of the packet, maybe. But anyway, in the narrative section there, you say, although 126 artifacts were found, 3 intact features were identified.
Mhm.
And I note that because it's inconsistent with what you do later.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Oh, here's one of the editorial things. This would be on report page 74. It's the very first line in your survey and testing results.
Okay.
It says in November 17, 22, and 23, and December of 2021. there's something wrong with those dates. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think you meant
What
November,
are the dates again, Derek? I'm sorry.
November, it says November 17, 22, and 23, and December of 2021 without any dates attached to December. Somewhere else you have it correctly. I think it was field work was
okay.
maybe all in December. Is that right?
No, I believe it was November and December.
Yeah, I was curious why you provided dates for the month of November, but no dates for the month of December. So I think it was just a
I'll have to
mission.
look at yeah, to clarify what, but
Those
page
dates-
74 is where we're addressing.
Those dates do appear on the NIAF.
Yeah, I think let's take a look at that real quick. Roll up. Yeah, so on the NIAF, you have November 17, 22, and 23, and December 2, 3, 4. So that's probably what's missing from the text of your report.
Oh, okay.
Here.
All of 2021, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so getting back to the foundations.
Okay.
I'm now on page 89,
Uh-huh.
which is your site description.
Okay.
And here it's described as a historic artifact scatter, no mention at all of the foundations, which you call features up above.
Oh, right. Okay.
They are features, but they are not treated as such there or here in the LA site record either. I agree with you that the artifact scatter is not very interesting in itself, but
Uh-huh.
those foundations do matter because
Yeah.
they help pinpoint the actual location of the building.
So, you're saying I didn't check artifact scatter with features.
Right, and
oh,
down
okay.
in the feature table, there's no appearance of the foundations either.
My
The only
apologies.
place
Yeah.
you mention them as features in the archaeological sense is way up in the beginning. After
Got
that, they disappear.
Okay.
And that's my concern, is that
Yeah.
they're not called out in the site form. Administratively, they will disappear. Nobody will ever see it again.
Got it. Okay.
So that site form needs to be amended to include those foundations as features of the site.
Absolutely.
Let me see, I think the rest is, it's all variations of the same thing. Under recommendations, again, you call it buried historic trash, no mention of foundation.
Got it. Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, the rest is all
Okay.
another iteration of the same problem.
So in the both the site form and the text, yes.
Yeah, make sure you call those footings feature 1 and feature 2 or whatever you decide, but
Okay.
treat them as features and describe them the way you should describe features.
Got it.
I believe that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek. Number 1.
Derek, you got most of it. You spelled my name wrong, Ron.
What?
On page
Is that
2.
possible? I must have got it from Glenda.
Nope.
I'm sorry, Courtney.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an embarrassment. I think I did that with Alicia one time, and David chastised me for that. Okay, got it.
Honestly, Derek, you really hit the main points about the features. Footings are definitely features and important.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, that helps us get to where the building actually was as opposed to where it shows up on maps or photos. You know, there's always going to be a little orientation problem.
Right.
As I said, Derek pretty much got it. So.
So that's it. Okay. I'll try to avoid anything that I have flagged that falls into what Derek and Courtney already mentioned. But let me start with page 1 of the NIAF. It states here that Hunter Redmond is the property owner.
Oh. That's, yeah, that's a bad one, yeah.
It is,
I was trying to wrap this up, David, and obviously, yeah,
it is indeed Christian Anderson.
yes.
Okay. The very next line of that box of a NIAF, it mentions more than one archaeologist. Could that name be added to the NIAF?
Okay,
Page 2 of the NIAF, box 18. Under survey field methods. Coverage method.
okay,
This is not monitoring trench excavations and back dirt. This is archaeological testing. It is not monitoring.
got it. Even though I'm monitoring the trench, it's not.
The trenches are mechanically excavated opportunities for you to make archaeological observations. They are not a consequence of construction or anything else.
Got it,
Only reason they're there is because you are there.
got it, okay.
In the management summary, third paragraph. Back to the mention of features. I would offer that a good number for the present is 5, not 3, because of things we'll get to later. Page 2 of the report. Last paragraph. Limited cultural resources. No, maybe the artifacts are kind of uninspiring, but you've got 5 architectural features. That's not limited. The next page threw me, page 3 of your report, because it looks like maybe that whole thing should be a quote and inset, because it's speaking about something that happened in 2006 from start to finish. And this is where the misadventure with the name of the building came up.
Oh, okay,
Miguel Chavez. So either it's a quote that should be inset, or somehow otherwise characterize it as a resume of previous observation elsewhere. Page 10, finally noticed that there's a difference in the inset, so I think I recognize where your quote begins. Attributing it all to Dayloff 2006. And Dr. Horties for his background work. And here is where the unwarned reader might start wondering, because here it mentions Mr. James Kirkpatrick as the owner. Page 13, second paragraph, next to the last line, the reference to Borton says 1979. Your references cited section says 1978. I don't know which. Page 15, climate, first line, your reference to Tuan et al. Does not appear in the references cited. Second paragraph, first line, the reference to Cordell 1979 bears a subscript A. There is only one reference to Cordell and your references cited. This again looks like it might be borrowed text from something else that did have an A, B C.
What page is that, David?
That is page 15, second paragraph.
Okay.
So page 29, actually, and page 27, the discussion of the neighborhood is certainly relevant, but it seems like there's an undue emphasis on things that happened some distance away from the property in question. Maybe explaining that would help. And I thank you for pointing out the source of the fuzzy images, because they were driving me nuts.
Yeah, me too. I tried to remedy that and I didn't get that resolved.
But I would point out that on page 45, in reference to one of those fuzzy images, you mentioned the construction of a house sometime between 1794 and 1815. And that's important because that house and possibly the footing for that adobe wall are on the property in question.
Mhm.
And as far as I can tell, because of the limitations on where your testing happened, those have not been investigated. Same page, 45, last paragraph, third line. I'm not sure whose text this is, but somebody counts 8 structures on the Gilmer map, and I got out my magnifying glass and I cannot come up with 8 structures on this Loretto property from that map.
Is that from, what is,
It may be, it's just unclear to me
yeah, I think it is. It
where
sounds
that
to me-
begins and where it ends.
It should be all, save for the, I mean, the illustrations, it should all be indented.
Okay, okay. Page 52. Discussion of the lots and breaking up of the larger property. The last paragraph. A house built by Manuel Delgado between 1794 and 1815. Presumably that's the same house. And I thank you for the photographs. They generally helped a lot. A couple of them were so fuzzy it was difficult, but at least possible to tease out the information you were keying on.
David, some of those, where I could, I mean, a lot of the photographs that came from, you know, the documentation from ARMS were not clear. And so whenever I could, I would replace them with ones of speaking of the same material or same structure or view with a better photograph if I could find it. So the ones that you're talking about that may be fuzzy could be from the original report and the way it was scanned.
All right, thank you. Page 70, your discussion of methodology. Second paragraph. Just going to mention this because it's going to come up again later. A minimum of 2%. of the total area. Let's keep that in mind. Very next paragraph. Hand excavation terminated when a sterile level was reached. I don't think you've reached sterile in either of your units. One has a brick laying at the bottom of it, so it's definitely not sterile. And the other one, the strata, the sediments seem to be suggestive of construction fill, which implies that sterile, as in undisturbed Mother Earth, is deeper. Same paragraph, you mention a 5.39 square foot part of the project parcel was cleared by a previous survey and testing project. 5.39 square feet.
Mhm. That's the one that Glenda got permission from Kirkpatrick to extend in looking for the foundation of the is it the auditorium, and she extended a part of her trench into this project area.
Okay. That would be nice to have explained in the text.
I thought
Because I couldn't figure out how 5.39 square feet popped in.
I thought I said it earlier that you know, a small portion, you know, was deducted because it had been tested by Daylaw.
Okay,
I'll have to find out where it is, but I'm sure I did say that.
so that is important because the rest of that paragraph is math, leading you to arrive at a figure of square feet available, which presumably eliminates all the buildings from the total square footage. But then mostly I see sidewalks. So not sure a sidewalk cost should qualify as a built environment, exempting the area from consideration for archaeological testing.
Okay. The owner requested specifically that I not tear up that area where the sidewalks are for a couple of reasons. One, the amount of public that use that thoroughfare, but also because there's electrical lines that run through there connecting lights that are lighted that area. And so, I mean, it was a tricky, you know, thing to avoid what they wanted kept and to do what I needed to do, you know, in terms of where the vendors set up, you know, in the northwest corner of the lot, but also where directly adjacent to the chapel, where the visitors, you know, pass through on their way to the church from the, you know, the parking area behind.
All right, fair enough. When they impose limitations, you have to live with what you get. As long as they are aware of the fact that by imposing limitations, they are kicking the can down the road, as it were.
No, I understand.
Okay. I would love to see a detailed breakdown of how many square feet of X, Y, and Z are out there. This is my vague recollections of stomping across that as I go through my cardio exercise routine. You know, I can't remember. Same page, next paragraph is a complete duplication of the first part of the previous paragraph. There's no discussion in here of the methodology used regards the backhoe trenches. How were they profiled? How, you know, how you did what you did. So there should at least be a paragraph about the trenches. Page 71. Cultural historical expectations. The last two sentences of paragraph 4. Seems reasonable that we should expect ancestral Puebloan pottery here. Seems reasonable that it's likely there. Seems reasonable that it is at considerably deeper elevations as was observed in a small way, but spoken about at some length by David Snow on the adjacent property, the Bishop's Garden, when he monitored trenches for drainage. Said pretty clearly that trenches weren't deep enough to have encountered the older deposits. So yeah, I think they're there, but they're just further down. Page 74. First paragraph, you mention your assistant. That was what caught my eye and led me back to the NIAC. So add the name, please.
Okay.
Page 75, line 3. The plural of stratum is strata. Same paragraph, lines 9 and 10. Referring to a modern PVC water pipe. It had been cut and removed with just the stubs remaining in the ends left in the walls. That suggests to me that your excavation is exactly where somebody else excavated before. So I wonder what we learned beyond the fact that there's a foundation wall there and that we haven't reached sterile because there's a brick at the bottom. And if these are presented in the order in which you did them, I would suggest that this is feature 1. Page 80, line 3. Strata, not stratum. Page 82, discussion of trench 1. We found a dry laid river cobble foundation. Sounds like feature 2. 58 artifacts were recovered from stratum D, with 32 of them pieces of faunal bone. Stratum D is at the bottom of your excavation. Doesn't sound like sterile. Page 85, which is where you first
David,
mentioned.
one second. On the
Go ahead.
Cobble Foundation, you're saying that should be feature 2, but you're saying that the reason I didn't go further in that trench, because I was hitting the wall on either side of that trench had a feature. And as I was excavating, the stone started to be dislodged. And I didn't go further for that very reason before destroying the whole foundation.
No, fair enough. You've got to protect yourself. But this is where on page 85, as far as I can tell, this is where you first mention a feature, which is the foundation. And if this is in the order in which it was done, we're now up to feature 3. And it does indeed look like a foundation probably associated with the Academy building, which is variously described as a music hall or whatever. It changes on the maps.
I think it's as it used to change it.
The building.
Yeah.
I think, but I cannot prove, that what you have hit is the foundation of the north steps of that building.
Yeah.
Page 86. Third line. Strata, not stratum. Here we hit a foundation wall, which according to your maps and dimensions, I cannot relate in a linear fashion to feature 2 or 3. It doesn't seem to line up. So that seems like it's feature 4. And then you mentioned another dry laid feature, feature 5, which also doesn't seem to line up with feature 2. So I'm not convinced you have the small number of features that you have reported here. I think you have at least 5.
David, what page is that again?
That you first illustrate this foundation, which you call a footer in the text here on page 86.
Okay.
But in the second or the following paragraph, you mentioned that there is a continuation of the cobble foundation documented in trench 1. But again, from your illustration, I cannot make straight lines. So if they are indeed the same thing, there has to be a couple of dog legs in the construction, or at least an angulation that isn't apparent.
Okay.
So that's why I say I'm not convinced yet you have a small number of features.
When I looked at that, and maybe it's not clear in the drawing, but when I looked at that and looked, east to west along the cobble foundation, it lined up with what was in the wall of trench 2, the cobbles, the loose cobbles that you see in that drawing.
Okay, great. That would be an important statement to add, because we're going to get to this. The maps and the GPS data don't seem to place these things in space in that configuration. So when in doubt, whip out the 30-meter tape and a compass and do it the old-fashioned way. Page 90, your list of artifacts, and this is the beginning of the artifact analysis. Somewhere about in the middle of that list, you mentioned one piece of a Mexican ceramic. Thank you for the picture, and the color picture was a little more informative. It seems like it's a piece of Maiolica. It seems like it could be rather important in terms of temporal association. And I know we have at least one really good local expert in Maiolica. So please get it identified and speak to its time frame.
Okay.
As always, thanks to Gwyneth Duncan for her faunal analysis. Amazing amount of information she pulled out of just a few bones. So page 108, the GPS locations. Your trenches are described by length and your illustrations show them by length, but your GPS locations do not describe things of those lengths. Trench 1 comes out only 8 meters long in one interpretation or 9 meters long in the other, and yet you've got it profiled as a 13-meter long trench, 13.5 in fact.
Right.
Same thing with trench 2. It's 16 and a half. I can't get anything out of your numbers that's larger than 12. Page 110, we're in Appendix B now. It's the first illustration of the Loretto Academy architecture. It's the west facade. Down at the lower right corner, there's a helpful little note. The architect intended that there was going to be a stone foundation with paneling, presumably stone, covering rough granite foundation. It wouldn't be the first time a Santa Fe contractor did something other than specified by the architect, but if indeed we found a granite foundation, I think we could say we have the Loretto foundation.
Mhm.
Or if it's all sandstone or limestone, we have something else we can say. On to Appendix C, after the building changed use and lost its upper story and magically gained a fire escape. Thank you, Sanborn Fire Insurance, for pointing that out. Page 121. There's a nice floor plan of, I shouldn't say floor plan. It's a plan view of the foundation. There's a workshop subsurface in the southeast corner of this building. That implies another 2 meters of depth. So there's a lot more to be investigated. About, I want to say 4 to 5 meters southeast of where your test unit 2 went in. I think you could very cheerfully dig yourself a hole about 4 meters deep before you found the bottom. Now that we know more about your limitations, the first page of the LA site record, which characterizes it as an asphalt parking lot. We in fact don't know how big the site is because we haven't investigated the area to the west and south. All we have is where it started with Delos excavations, and maybe Courtney can tell us where it started. And now we've pushed it a little bit further west. So characterizing the site as being covered with an asphalt parking lot seems to be artificial. Part 10 of the site form, feature data. Member Pierce already pointed that out. There should be a list of everything with dimensions and descriptions and further detail as necessary to get it across. And yeah, it's a site with features. And the association of the artifacts with the features is in question right now because we don't know the sequence of deposition. So you may have more than one component. And that is all. In short, I think we have a document that says there's a lot more out there that needs attention. So I'm having a hard time with the recommendation that nothing more needs to be done. So with that said, if someone wants to craft a motion, we can entertain it.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure what that motion would be at this point.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I agree that, you know, if this were just a scatter of historic artifacts that were in redeposited context, of course, it's not significant. But foundations change that equation. And also the possibility that the testing didn't go deep enough. So it seems like the only path forward here would be either additional testing or monitoring during construction, either one of which sounds a little onerous and costly. I'm not quite sure how to proceed here.
Well, just thinking out loud, if we took the entire square footage of the property and recomputed the 2% minimum and made sure we at least reached above that with targeted excavation in places that are going to answer our questions, we might get to an answer in this reconnaissance phase using the Santa Fe terminology. I really think that house to the west should be looked for because something built in 1800 it meets all the criteria under Santa Fe's ordinance for significance. If we could demonstrate that it's not there somehow, evidence of absence and all that philosophical stuff, but we should look. I think we should go look in the known to be subterranean portion of the Loretto building, at least. And I think we should look along the walls of said building to see if feature 2 by my count, or feature 3 by my count, is indeed the stairway, or is it the north wall of the Academy building? And then corollary to that, feature 2, further north, the dry laid thing, what is it? Is it something intended to stabilize a walkway? Is it a garden wall, like Ron suggested? Could be either, because the good sisters were into gardening. They had lots of gardens and probably had them everywhere that wasn't being used for anything else almost all the time. They liked it so much, they chose to be buried in their garden at the opposite end of the property. And that's when they got interrupted by the construction of the Miguel Chavez building. Who got moved? How many got moved? Was it everybody that got moved? And how thoroughly did they move any of the above is an open question. The other corner of the property is still important to pay attention to. So if we can relate this to the activity of the nuns in having their buildings built and their property used and following their life way, interpreting these foundations is a positive contribution to the history of Santa Fe. And while we're at it, we might just find some prehistory if we go deep enough. And I'd rather not wait until construction to go deep enough to find something that needs investigation. And most developers would probably have the same desire.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I suspect as well that monitoring during construction is going to be counterproductive because it's not a question of if they'll find something. We know they will. And that construction will have to pause while Ron documents it and then start up and pause again. And so it seems like additional testing for construction is probably the better option.
Yep. So,
but anyway, the motion I think is to postpone, right? So that Ron has the opportunity to embellish his testing program, his reconnaissance level testing.
Did you do the calculations, Ron, on the percentage
Yes. And
with
what
or
I,
without sidewalks?
what I took out was the areas that, you know, I was restricted from and did the areas that I had access to. And so it would be telling the owners that it doesn't matter what their wishes are, that and how it interrupts the visitation at the chapel, but that the ARC is requiring additional monies and testing, you know, to satisfy the ordinance.
If I could, maybe as a point of clarification in the ordinance, since I don't know it by heart either, where does that come from? Where does it say that if half the parcel is developed, that you only need to calculate the 2% of the remaining part?
I don't know that it says that, but I don't know that it specifies that, but I tell you, if everything was considered, every square foot, and you had a major building, I mean, it might entail demolishing part of the building or digging inside the building. You know, I don't know where you draw the line, but
can I interject that in what is now the Santa Fe School of Cooking, they did excavate inside the building.
right. No, I know that, well, they did down at the School for the Arts too, didn't they? I believe.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
unit inside the building.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not clear because I don't know the ordinance so well myself. Let's say you have a theoretical parcel and half of it is developed. Does that mean that you do 2% of the other half, or do you then do 4% of that other half? Make up for
And
what is
it
not
doesn't,
tested.
yeah, it does not clarify, you know, how you handle that.
Well, the underlying problem, of course, is that we just don't have enough information to make a determination about the significance and whether or not full-blown data recovery is required.
Yeah.
So if we're forced into a default, that might be it, data recovery. I don't think anybody wants that outcome. So yeah, it's a tough choice here, but it's a choice that's going to have to be made.
So David, where, with your concerns, where would you, certainly to the west of Trench 2, where that house may or may not be in the area where the vendors set up? Right, okay, and where else? You said southeast, 4 or 5 meters southeast of Trench, the south end of Trench 2, is that the other?
Southeast of Test Unit 2
Test unit, oh, Test unit 2.
would place you, according to Google Earth. Admittedly, Google Earth is not the best tool, but it's all I had since I can't go actually out there and kick the dirt and measure it myself.
Right,
That should place you in the workshop area,
got it.
which is definitely subsurface construction. It is unclear to me from the illustration at hand whether the rest of the area enclosed within the foundation is an earth-filled crawl space or if it's a deeper basement. There is a door illustrated on the north side of that workshop. It's 3 feet wide. The drawing helpfully tells us that it's 3 feet wide and it gives onto an area that is labeled earth. At what elevation? Is it a dirt floored root cellar? Is it a very shallow dirt floored crawl space? Quién sabe? And how is it built? Is all this fill? Because remember, this is right next to the reason we have Water Street, the Arroyo, the Rio Chiquito. There's known backfilling addition of lots of material to try to level things and make them buildable along that thing, because they didn't just fill it with dirt and pave over it. The buildings would be falling down if they did that. So they had to do something else. They brought in material, they compacted it, they worked with it. And that's why that stuff that looks like building construction fill is alarming, because it's not sterile. It's brought in. So Mother Earth is deeper. So it seems very minimally disruptive to take something on the order of 2 vendor spaces to do a hand excavation, 2 sterile. We're talking at least 20 centimeters of plain sterile river sand, or monstrous river cobbles that are bigger than my head. I use mine because I think I have the biggest rock in the group. Something that says we've reached bottom, and there's no evidence of anything between current surface and there that suggests that there was a house in that location.
So in those 2 areas that you recommended earlier, is that what you're saying?
I was just beginning.
Oh,
1 space of about that dimension, excavated by hand, 2 sterile within the vendor area, will answer the question about that house and whether or not it's more than 1 iteration of house building.
got
So
it.
that's not clear. Over in the other location, where I'm pretty sure my estimate places you in the workshop in the basement of this building, the Loretto Academy,
Mhm.
something of a similar size could be placed right next to one of the sidewalks, wouldn't have to impede passersby. I would offer that a nice fully enclosed tent structure so that you don't have the curious peering over your head. Having spent the better part of eternity in the Camposanto in front of the chapel across the street from this building, and having prairie dogs popping up over the fence every 5 seconds asking stupid questions, it doesn't constitute good archaeological work environment. So protect yourself, enclose yourself, rent a vendor's cubicle tent that closes up so you can go in there and do your thing and nobody needs to butt in. And you can dig 1 hole over there where the house is. We'll figure out how big it needs to be after you recompute the square footage. And dig another hole over here where the basement is, and we'll figure out how big that should be depending on your square footage. And then I think we got something to talk about.
Mr. Chair, one potential issue occurred to me, particularly when he's looking for the bottom of a subterranean room. It may be that a test unit has to go so deep that it's not practical or safe. So is there a lower limit to, that we can live with, not to exceed 1 meter of depth or something like that? Because otherwise you're going to have to step this back several layers in order to get to the bottom.
Yes, step it back.
Okay.
Because the only answer is we know where sterile is. Otherwise, we haven't learned anything.
So how do we move forward, Mr. Chair? Are we going to allow Ron to make these explorations, approach the owner and say, we're going to go do this, this, and this? Or are we going to have staff oversight something or a submittal? I don't exactly know how. This could be an endless thing.
Personally, I would like to see the numbers to know how big the excavations are going to be at
So
minimum.
do you want that to come back to us, or do you want that to go to staff?
I definitely want it to come to us. I do not want staff to be in the position of trying to make deep calls on details of archaeological requirements. I think that's above and beyond what anybody should expect of staff. It's in our purview. It's information we need to reach a conclusion as to whether or not something is or is not significant and whether additional data recovery is or is not required. It's basic fact finding.
So David, then you would consider none of the square footage of the project area off limits then?
Not in terms of that calculation.
Okay,
It cannot be.
okay,
And where we need to dig, very sorry, but it's going to have to be outside where you don't want us to go. But on the other hand, when you want to start to rip and tear and build whatever you're going to build, you're going to do it anyway. So suck it up. We're going to do it now because we need to know something. It's to their advantage because once you get construction started, 10-day delay is going to be boatloads of money. And I don't think all of us put together could spend that much doing that additional testing.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm about to make a motion to postpone consideration of this case, so Ron can flesh out additional details, but normally we do that to a date certain. I don't know that we can count on the next meeting. So can we leave it open-ended or should we pick a later date?
Suggestion, if he can come up with the numbers in time for Carly to feel okay about putting it on the agenda for the 17th, we'll hear it then.
can that just be a letter report saying this information, David?
It can be whatever staff thinks they need. I think it should be a piece of paper with a lot of numbers on it that spells out very clearly what the square footage of everything is and where we need to go.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Should he withdraw the report because he's missing feature identifications and all of that anyway? And if it's going to be expanded, then he can withdraw it and hold, and that way there is no date? Or is that not a good idea?
That's a grand suggestion, and that's up to Ron and his client. How big a hurry are they in?
Well, I can't reach him right now, but I certainly can by tomorrow. I mean, but you probably need an answer now.
On the
Yeah,
number.
I guess, Ron, your choice at the moment is withdraw the case or we'll do a motion to postpone to the 17th. Do you have a preference?
Well, the 17th, I don't think is possible. I mean, well, I mean, I can make the corrections and I can come up with the square footage that David's asking for. But
Yeah, obviously you can't do the actual field work in that time frame.
Right.
Nobody's expecting that.
No.
But Ron, make it work for you.
Yeah.
If you just want to come back with the numbers and finish the report in time for the next meeting at the beginning of April, that's fine. Don't knock yourself out if you don't have to. That's why I say it's up to you and your client.
My only concern is making that April meeting. I don't know that that's possible to get, for the final report.
Then punt it to June. It doesn't matter to us.
Yeah.
It's whatever works for you, as long as we get the information.
Yeah. No,
Well,
I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, in that case, if we don't have any particular date in mind, the logical choice probably is to withdraw so that we don't have to pin you down to a date that you may or may not be able to meet.
Right. Okay, yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. I just know that, making the April meeting, I don't think it's feasible, given what, I mean, I can certainly make the April meeting in terms of supplying you with numbers and so we can determine, the amount or the size of these units in the area that we want to investigate. And
Perhaps that could be a matter from the floor or a discussion item during
Okay.
one of our next meetings, but not a case number.
Yeah.
It would be,
Makes
it would
sense.
be limited to a consensus opinion at that point. If he wants it to be a committee ruling, it needs to be an action item.
Okay.
So, Carly, could this thing be withdrawn and somehow discussed under old business as an action item for purposes of further defining the area involved in the project? And then it can still be old business if it comes back to us later, or does it need to get withdrawn and be new business?
Could be either. If it is not an action item under old or new business, it would be open for comment and not ruling. But
David, the one thing I'm trying to avoid is rewriting the report twice.
I agree.
You know,
No one would want to.
no. However, it needs to happen where I get you those numbers, we figure out, we have a good idea now where those units should go, but we need to know the size of them based on what the requirements are. And my feeling is it'll be more than that, in terms of testing.
Yeah, you might need a couple extra units just to meet the threshold.
Yeah.
Right. And so in terms of safety, you get deep and you're stepping it back. Well,
That's
all
area.
that step back
Right.
can count if we're gaining information out of it. If it's just safety workaround, move this dirt because it's dangerous, well, then I don't know that we do get credit for that, because if it's not excavated per se, are we
Right.
getting information out of it?
Got it.
So there's a lot of balls in the air with trying to figure out how to make this happen under a continuation of this reconnaissance effort.
Right.
there was a question about code, and I just wanted to clarify that in chapter 3.13C under procedures is where that 2% is discussed, the lot area.
And is there anything about excluding areas that are developed and therefore inaccessible? We're trying to determine whether those developed areas are included in the calculation or exempted from the calculation.
No, it is not, and not in 4A under reconnaissance.
Thank you.
So-
That does help.
You end up with a standing structure that's not going to be changed. You dig trenches all the way around it,
Yep.
Twice as many as you would have. Okay, we don't want anybody to tear down the house. If it's got a dirt basement floor, well, why not put a hole down there? We learned something. I mean, we did it in the convention center. We learned something.
Yeah, I think, there were internal excavations at Duplitz.
Yes.
I think that's that is not an uncommon thing in buildings in Santa Fe.
Maybe the Loretto Chapel should be an exception.
Yeah.
That's a different piece of property.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, what's your druthers, Ron? Withdraw and pick a date later and ask for advice in between, or
Yeah.
what?
Probably so. Yeah. Just-
Okay,
Yeah.
all you have to do is speak the words.
I can't quite get them out. No, I suppose the best option then is to withdraw and to put forth a document for the next meeting with the 2% testing based on the total lot size, and then proceed, if that is agreed upon, then proceed to conduct the testing and make the corrections in this report and add the new information.
Fair enough. We accede to your request. We will consider the matter withdrawn.
Okay.
And I don't believe that is an action item requiring a vote, correct? All right, we'll move on. Case number 2022-4927. Ron Winters, agent for Las Palomas, requests approval of an archaeological survey and testing report of 0.457 acres at 494-496 West Water Street in the historic downtown archaeological review district. We have staff report. Thank you, Carly. Anything to change?
No, Chair.
Ron, what do we need to know about 494-496 West Water Street?
This one I had a difficult time again with, there was not an area that was undisturbed in the testing that I did. Mixed fill, some ceramics, double ceramics that are 18th century alongside, artifacts from 1960s. The whole thing, the couple of pits where they had mixed stucco and plaster from the construction of the new building at Las Palomas. So it was a difficult call. Is it significant because of the number of artifacts? Maybe. Is it eligible? I don't think so. That's basically all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Member Pierce.
Yeah, I had one editorial comment flagged here. Let me find it real quick. Where did it go? No, it won't scroll to it for some reason. Oh, this is still on the NIA form, on the management summary. The second line there's a series of dates that read September 7, 8, 9, and 14. I think that was supposed to be December 7, 8, 9, and 14.
Oh.
It is stated as such earlier in the NIAS at the very beginning, so your dates don't agree across the whole document. Otherwise, though, I don't think I have anything for this one, huh?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Number one. Oops. Caught her away from
Sorry,
her.
can I recuse from this one? I got to take care of something downstairs.
No problem.
Sorry.
We got it covered. Be well. Members in.
No comment on this one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I've got three things, two of which you already know about. NIAF, survey field methods. It's not monitoring.
It's not what?
Page 53. Fifth paragraph. You are not monitoring, therefore you should not call yourself an archaeological monitor in that paragraph. Lastly, page 83. The west profile of Trench 1. Sorry, but we haven't demonstrated that we know where sterile is, because you've got features going out the bottom of your trench that have no end. What are they? Why are they full of what they're full of? How did they get there? If they are indeed pits to mix X, Y, and Z, great. Let's find the bottom so that we can say what they are. But there's two things in that trench, one at the south end and the other a few meters north of it, that have no third definition, as in vertical. So, given normal opinion, I don't think we're done.
I think those were modern features from what I, determined. From the material, there's plastic in them. I think they were, had to do with the construction of the, as I said earlier, of the building, the new addition on Las Palomas. There was, there were, trying to think what other trash was mixed in with that. But I don't recall.
Well, it characterizes as very dark grayish brown construction debris / fill with charcoal flecking. Okay. But people fill cesspits with such trash.
Mhm.
What's the bottom of the pit? What's in it is not necessarily what relates to why it's there. What's in it does not necessarily tell us how it got there. So if we had definition on its third dimension, we'd have more assurance that we have indeed reached the limit of necessary inquiry. So if it were me, I would go get the backhoe and I would re-excavate the south 5 meters of that trench and I would punch it another meter down. And you don't have to get in it. You just have to be able to tell us what you can see. And if you see prehistoric sherds coming out in the back dirt, then we've learned something. If you see something else coming out in the back dirt, we've learned something in a timely way. I think that's what should be done, but I'm just 1/3 of the remaining quorum.
And that was trench 3?
1, according to your illustration.
Oh, trench 1, okay.
That's the southernmost 5 or 6 meters of trench.
Got it.
2 edges of 2 somethings, well,
Got it.
3 edges total, diving below the depth of your trench.
I was mistaken. I thought you were talking about a different trench. Yeah, I have it now.
So back to your druthers. Do you want to postpone to a date certain? Do you want to withdraw and be able to schedule things in a more leisurely manner? Or do you want to prevail upon the committee to make a motion based on what we have?
That's what I thought to do, the last choice. Yeah.
Somebody want to make a motion? And if there is no motion, the case will languish until such time as we can consider it. It can essentially die its own death. If there is a motion, we will vote on it because that's what we do.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a move to approve case 4926 with the caveat if Ron feels comfortable enough to go back in there and explore that one end of one trench to see if it goes to sterile. I think we're dealing with professionals here, and I think we can't micromanage every trench out there. So that's my motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that just so it can be brought to a vote.
All right, let's have a roll call.
Member Pierce,
I think in view of the incomplete information, I'm going to vote nay.
okay, Member Zinn
Aye.
and Chair Eck.
Nay.
Nay, okay, the motion failed.
Thank you.
So what's the next step, David?
Well, as members in said, we are all trying to deal with all this as professionals. I think the thing to do is to go out there and deepen one little part of one little trench and get an answer, change your report accordingly, and bring it back next time.
I'll let the client know.
Yeah, the key to the whole thing here seems to be providing better proof that this is an intrusive modern feature and not something associated with the original occupation. I just don't think we're there yet.
Okay, I'll tell him we have to address that, the south end of trench 1, 5-6 meters of it. Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. You are free to go if you wish.
Mr. Chair,
We have another case.
yeah, I think we skipped over the fourth case. Guadalupe Street, did we?
Yes.
If we did, I am very sorry. I am looking at
Monitoring.
something here that's
I was looking for the trenches, couldn't find them.
not complete.
Wrong case. Let's go get to it.
You are correct. It's case number 2022-4926. Ron Winter is agent for Kelly Cable, requests approval of an archaeological monitoring plan for approximately 660 feet of fiber optic installation at 502 North Guadalupe Street in the River and Trails Archaeological Review District. My apologies. Carly, thank you for the staff report. Anything to add?
No, Chair.
Ron, what do we need to know about this?
Well, the client, Kelly Cable, has requested opportunity to bore this in for the subsurface disturbance on this project because of its location and the request by the city to not block Paseo de Peralta by trenching down the street, or the Kelly Cable, the other option in where they would bore would be in underneath the sidewalk rather than taking up the sidewalk along the front and blocking the entrances, the two of those entrances to the shopping center. So that's it.
Thank you. That all makes sense. Committee members, number ones, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
Do you have any comment on this case?
No comment. I had questions about the boring, but I understand that this, if the city is requesting it of the client, then I don't know that.
Members in,
No comment.
member Pierce.
Just one comment. Yeah, I'm on board with the boring it under the circumstances that make sense. The report does mention a total of 28 feet of trenching, and it took me several reads to figure out where that was. I finally did find it. It's basically those two red boxes at either end of the alignment on figure 2, correct, Ron?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it would have been helpful to clarify that a little more, because that is, a portion of the alignment that you will actually be able to monitor, which is
Right.
something better than nothing. So, yeah, my only concern there was just, it took me a long time to figure out what you were trying to say. But
Okay.
once I did, it all made sense, and I agree with it. So,
I'll second that because it made all perfect sense as soon as I found the colors available on the digital version. It was clear as mud up till then. So thank you. We can have a motion.
I'd move for approval of 4926 as submitted.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call, please.
Member Pierce,
Aye.
member Wands.
Aye.
Member Zinn.
Aye.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And again, my apologies for missing the order that they were supposed to be in. Looking at one piece of paper and reading another one simultaneously. Administrative matters and communications. What do we have, Carly?
We will be hiring a senior planner pretty soon. The post is not yet up, but we expect it to be up soon. It was going to be up this week, but maybe it'll be up next. For now, that is it.
All right.
May I ask how the search is going for our missing historian on the
That was
committee?
my question.
Yes, we do have a very interested party, and we are looking into meeting the requirements that are established, and then the steps forward on that currently.
Thank you.
I'm glad we have an interested party. All the parties that I talked to in trying to solicit applications turned out that they don't actually live in Santa Fe, so I was left without tools to work with. So I'm
They
glad
do
we
need
have-
to live and they need to live within the city limits. Yes, that's a tricky bit.
Okay.
Well, good luck.
Any other matters from committee? With no matters from committee, we have item I on the agenda.
Courtney, make the motion. Oh, she's gonna move for, move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Motion
Second.
and second. Roll call, please.
Member Pierce,
Aye.
Member Wands,
Aye.
Member Zinn.
Aye.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, see you on the 17th.
See you on the
17th.